Tales That Never Sleep. February 9th, 2004. A quiet stretch of route on 12 in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Snow drifts gently across a narrow, winding road. A black Saturn sedan sits abandoned by the roadside, front end crushed, hazard lights flashing dimly in the dusk. The engine is still warm. The driver is gone. No blood, no footprints, no signs of a struggle. Only broken glass, a single rag stuffed into the tailpipe, and silence. Her name was Maura Murray, 21-year-old, nursing student with a promising future, a warm smile, and a life that, on the surface, looked completely ordinary. But what happened on that snow-covered road has become one of the most disturbing and enduring mysteries in modern America. And to this day, no one knows where she went. She was brilliant, driven, an athlete, a West Point cadet, a college student studying to save lives. But beneath the perfect image there were cracks. A recent car crash, a stolen credit card, a night of tears at her dorm job that ended in a cryptic message, "My sister," and then days later, she was gone. Not just gone, erased. Dispatcher, 911, what is your emergency? Caller, there's a car off the road. The girl, she said not to call the police. That was the last time anyone ever saw Maura Murray. No one has heard her voice since. Was she running from something? Had she planned her own escape? Or did someone stop to help Viking and end her story forever? Thousands of theories have flooded the internet for 2 decades. Investigators, journalists, and amateur sleuths have pored over every detail. Her family has never stopped searching. And the questions keep coming. Why did she lie to her professors about a family emergency? Why did she withdraw nearly all her money and drive into the mountains? Why did she pack alcohol and a birth control prescription? Why leave without telling a soul? There's something about Maura's case that haunts people. Not just because she vanished, but because we almost feel like we know her. She wasn't a celebrity. She wasn't famous. She was just someone like us. Smart, flawed, full of potential, and now a ghost. In this story, we're going to walk through the final days of Maura's known life, piece by piece, as we try to understand what led her to that snowy road, and what might have happened next. We'll hear from those closest to her, examine every theory, and ask the question that keeps her father awake every night. Where is my daughter? This is not just a mystery. It's a story about a girl who wanted to start over, and a society obsessed with her silence. And if you think you know this case, think again. Because what happened to Maura Murray might not just be a tragedy. It might be something much darker. Stay with us. Before the headlines, before the missing posters, before the snow-covered car by the side of the road, there was Maura. Just a little girl from Hanson, Massachusetts, with dark, curious eyes and a shy, thoughtful smile. Born on May 4th, 1982, Maura Elizabeth Murray was the 4th of 5 children in a tight-knit Irish Catholic family. Her father, Fred Murray, a Vietnam veteran and quiet disciplinarian, worked tirelessly to give his kids a shot at a better life. Her mother, Lori, was warm, soft-spoken, but carried struggles of her own. From the beginning, Maura stood out, not just for her intelligence, but for a kind of quiet determination that made people take notice. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy. She was just exceptional. By high school, Maura was already a standout, a track star who could outpace most of the boys, and a math whiz who tutored her classmates after practice. Her older sister, Julie, a graduate of West Point, inspired her to push further, and Maura followed that path. Straight into the United States, military academy at West Point. But here's where the picture begins to crack. Despite her achievements, Maura didn't stay long at West Point. She left after an incident involving credit, card misuse, a petty theft. reportedly involving using someone else's card to order food. It was minor, but it mattered. University of Massachusetts at Amherst in 2001 to study nursing. Attractive student with a close group of friends and a serious long-distance boyfriend, Billy Roush, a fellow West Point cadet now stationed in Oklahoma. She was private but warm. You could trust her. Yet, beneath that composed exterior, something darker simmered. And according to many, she adapted quickly, smart. She had everything going for her. Maura's relationship with her father, Fred, was complicated. He was her biggest supporter, frequently visiting, often helping with car troubles, and calling regularly. But some describe him as strict, others controlling, and Maura often didn't share everything. Her relationship with her boyfriend Billy was long distance and intense. Some friends described it as loving, others strained. There were rumors, suspicious texts, emotional phone calls, but nothing conclusive. Just layers, so many layers. Her dorm room reflected her inner world. Clean, minimal, organized, almost too perfect. One roommate said Maura rarely spoke about personal problems. Another recalled her crying at work one night, so hard she could barely speak. When asked what was wrong, she simply said, "My sister." No one knows what that meant. Not exactly. She was 21, carrying the weight of expectations from her father, her peers, herself. There were signs of struggle. An incident involving a stolen credit card at UMass. A car crash days before she vanished, late at night, in her father's borrowed car. A broken relationship with her mother, who had been battling alcoholism, a secret, or secrets, she never shared. She smiled in photos. She aced her classes. She sent emails like everything was normal. But inside, we may never know. It's easy to reduce Maura to a missing girl, to a face on a flyer. But she was more than that. She was a sister, a daughter, a runner, a student, a young woman standing at the edge of adulthood, trying to hold it all together. And in the final days before she disappeared, that quiet storm inside her, because just days after that breakdown, Maura sent a cryptic email and vanished into the mountains. Whatever was happening in her life, it was about to come to a head. Next, leading up to her disappearance, when everything began to unravel, to a headline, seemed to reach a breaking point. Told a lie about a family emergency. Still, Maura kept moving forward. Packed up her dorm, withdrew her money. We follow Maura in the 72 hours. Time has a strange way of warping around tragedy. We look back and hoping to spot the signs, the cracks, the decisions that whispered, something is coming. The final 72 hours of Maura Murray's known life are filled with exactly that. Whispers, clues, red flags, and one growing question. Was she running toward something or away from everything? Friday, February 6th, 2004.
Maura had a routine. She worked the security desk at UMass's Melville Hall on weekend nights. Quiet hours, perfect for homework. But that Friday night was different. Around 10:30 p.m., Maura received a phone call. No one knows what was said. Minutes later, she broke down in tears. A supervisor later recalled. It was like she had just been hit by something emotional. I asked what was wrong. She just kept repeating, my sister, my sister. But when investigators asked her sister later, there was no incident. Nothing had happened. What was that phone call? Who was on the other end?
Saturday, February 7th.
The next day, Maura's father, Fred, drove up to Amherst to help her shop for a used car. She'd recently crashed her old one and needed a replacement. They spent the day together, looked at vehicles, had dinner, checked into a motel. Fred said Maura seemed fine. Nothing seemed off. But that night, Maura took Fred's brand-new Toyota Corolla out alone and crashed it at around 3:30 a.m. She lost control near Hadley, Massachusetts, hitting a guardrail. No injuries, minor damage, but it was her second crash in a short time. According to the police report, she seemed sober, but she was shaken and embarrassed. Her father later called it no big deal. But for Maura, it was another secret stacking on top of the others. Another crack in her perfect image.
February 8th.
Maura spent Sunday with her father. They dealt with insurance paperwork, talked, and returned the rental car. On the surface, it looked like a normal day, but internally, something was building. When Fred drove back home that evening, Maura returned to her dorm. She didn't party. She didn't call friends. Instead, she got online and began making plans.
February 9th.
This was the day Maura would vanish. But before she did, she orchestrated a series of decisions that still puzzle investigators and family alike. That morning, she emailed her professors saying there had been a death in the family, and she'd be gone for a few days. There had been no death. She called a number for lodging in Vermont, specifically a condo her family had stayed at in the past. She withdrew $280, nearly her entire bank balance. She emailed her boyfriend Billy, saying she loved him and would call later. She packed her dorm belongings into boxes and placed them neatly on her bed. Among the things she brought with her favorite textbooks, a birth control prescription, clothes, her high school transcripts, and about 7 bottles of alcohol, including Bailey's and vodka. She left no note. She told no friend. She left behind something else too, her future. Around 4:30 p.m., Maura got into her beat-up 1996 Saturn sedan. No GPS. No cell reception where she was headed. Just printed MapQuest directions to Burlington, Vermont, a place she had no scheduled meetings, friends, or known contacts. The snow was beginning to fall. The air was thin, cold, and Maura Murray was vanishing mile by mile. It's hard not to wonder what she was thinking behind the wheel. Was she finally free, or was she already in danger? This wasn't a random road trip. It wasn't spontaneous. She'd planned this, and that's what chills people the most, because Maura didn't just disappear. She engineered her own exit. By 7:27 p.m. that night, Maura's Saturn would crash into a snowbank on Route 112 in rural New Hampshire. Within minutes, a neighbor would call 911, and by the time the police arrived, she was gone. No footprints, no struggle, no signs of Maura, just a shattered windshield and a rag stuffed deep into the tailpipe. A narrow, icy stretch of road winds through the shadows of the White Mountains. Snow falls lightly under a pale sky. Silence surrounds the woods like a veil. Then, the sharp sound of a car hitting something. A tree, or maybe a snowbank. Headlights flicker. A black Saturn is now lodged in the snow, slightly off the road. Front end smashed, windshield cracked. The driver? Gone. But in the next 20 minutes, multiple people would see her, and yet no one truly saw her. The first report came from a woman named Faith Westman, who lived just a few hundred feet from the crash site. She looked out her window and saw a car facing the wrong direction on the road. She told the 911 dispatcher, "There's been a car accident outside my house. I think it's a single-vehicle crash." She didn't report any sign of injury. No screams. No urgency. Just a car. Moments later, a local school bus driver, Butch Atwood, stopped at the scene on his way home. He later said he saw a young woman, fitting Maura's description, standing near the Saturn. She appeared cold but not panicked. He rolled down his window and asked, "Do you want me to call the police?" Maura said no. She told him she had already called AAA, but there were no cell towers nearby. No service. No AAA call was ever placed. Still, Atwood didn't push. He drove home just a few hundred yards away and made a 911 call himself. He later described Maura as calm, not visibly hurt, just cold, alone. That was the last confirmed sighting of Maura Murray. Oofly 19 minutes after the crash, Officer Cecil Smith of the Haverhill Police Department arrived at the scene. But the car was empty. The driver's side door was locked. The passenger side and rear doors were unlocked. Inside the car, an empty soda bottle, alcohol containers, some broken, a box of wine that had spilled across the interior, her personal belongings, gloves, CDs, a book on mountain climbing, her cell phone, gone, her debit and credit cards, gone, her wallet, gone, no blood, no sign of a struggle, just silence. And one deeply bizarre detail, a rag, stuffed tightly into the tailpipe of her Saturn. Fred Murray later said he'd taught Maura this trick. If your car's running rough, stuff in a rag in the exhaust and stall it, a quick and dirty way to avoid engine damage. But why would Maura do that on the side of the road? Was she trying to kill the engine or something else? Some investigators believe it could have been a deliberate move to stage a breakdown. Others fear it was a sign of sabotage. Was someone else planning to make sure her car stalled? By the time Officer Smith arrived, Maura had been missing for less than 10 minutes. Yet search dogs later traced her scent from the car to about 100 yards down the road, and then the trail abruptly ended, like she'd vanished mid-step. No drag marks, no blood, no tracks leading into the woods. Just nothing. Some believe she was picked up by a passerby. Others think she ran into the forest to hide. But in freezing weather, wearing only light clothes and carrying no gear, that's a death sentence. Yet, there was no body. In the hours and days that followed, inconsistencies began to surface. The original dispatch log listed the responding officer's vehicle as 001, which was assigned to Sergeant John Monahan, not Cecil Smith. Monahan drove an SUV, while Smith had a sedan. Witnesses said they saw an SUV at the scene, not a sedan. So which officer arrived first? And why were there conflicting reports? Conspiracy theories exploded, some accusing the police of a cover-up. Others pointed fingers at locals. The facts blurred. The mystery deepened. Despite Maura's disappearance being clear within minutes, a full-scale search didn't begin until the next day. By then, any footprints or scent trails had been erased by snowfall and passing traffic. Search dogs, helicopters, and thermal imaging were deployed, but turned up nothing. A single glow was found in the snow nearby. Possibly Maura's, possibly not. No signs of foul play, but no signs of life either. Early on, police treated Maura's case as a probable voluntary disappearance. They said there was no evidence of foul play, no confirmed abduction. To them, it looked like a troubled young woman who'd simply walked away from her life. But to her family and to the growing legion of internet sleuths, that explanation didn't sit right. Fred Murray, in particular, pushed back hard. My daughter didn't run away. Someone took her, and I'll find them. Fred Murray drove up the next day. He stood at the site of the crash, just feet from where Maura was last seen, and stared into the woods. He called her name for hours, but the trees stayed silent, and the snow kept falling. Maura Murray's car crashed at 7:27 p.m. By 7:46 p.m., she was already gone. In 19 minutes, less time than it takes to eat dinner, she had vanished from the face of the earth. No one knows how, no one knows where, and no one, not even her family, has ever heard her voice again. The questions wouldn't stop. Not for her father, not for investigators, not for the online community that was about to turn her story into one of the internet's most infamous cold cases. Up next, we look into what went wrong with the investigation, the false leads, the missed evidence, and the decisions that may have erased the truth forever. It was supposed to be a missing persons case, a simple search and rescue. A young woman crashes her car and disappears into the snowy woods. She'd turn up by morning, cold but alive. That's what police believed. But she didn't turn up. And within hours, this case, already bizarre, began to slip through their fingers. The first 24 hours are critical in any disappearance. But in Maura Murray's case, law enforcement didn't treat it like a crime scene. They treated it like a runaway. There's no evidence of foul play. She probably wanted to be alone. She'll come back when she's ready. These were the early assumptions made
Saturday,
by the
February
Hayward Police
7th.
Department and later the New Hampshire State Police. As a result, no roadblocks were set up that night. No Amber Alert was issued. She was over 18. No bolo, be on the lookout, was circulated to nearby towns until the next day. No photographs were immediately released to the public. Maura wasn't treated like a victim. She was treated like a girl who had simply wandered off. But Fred Murray knew better. By all accounts, he was devastated, but focused. He began searching on foot immediately, handing out flyers, knocking on doors, talking to locals, reporters, police, anyone who would listen. My daughter's not hiding. My daughter's missing. But Fred quickly realized he was not getting full cooperation. He asked to see Maura's car. Police denied him access. He asked for the accident report. They said it wasn't ready. He asked to
February
review
8th.
Maura's belongings from the car. Denied again. Fred wasn't just grieving. He was becoming suspicious. Puzzle pieced the clues that were found, and then dismissed. In the days following Maura's disappearance, a few key pieces of evidence did surface. Scent dogs tracked Maura 100 yards down the road. Bloodhounds traced her scent from the Saturn to the middle of the road. And then it just stopped. Theory: she got into a vehicle, willingly or not. An ATM surveillance video. Footage surfaced showing Maura withdrawing $280 from her bank account the day she left. She appeared alone. Calm. Focused. Liquor store footage. She purchased alcohol using her ID. Again alone. No signs of duress. Phone records showed a call to a condo rental. A number Maura had dialed before heading north, tied to a vacation rental in Bartlett, New Hampshire. Police never followed up directly with the property manager. Crossmark critical mistakes made early on. Investigators failed to secure the crash scene as a potential crime scene, collect snow or ground samples for footprints or blood, preserve inside of the car for forensic analysis, immediately track her cell phone ping or bank card usage. One of the most controversial oversights: the car's black box data, which could reveal the last seconds before the crash, was either never retrieved or never released. The result? Dozens of critical hours lost. And possibly the only chance they had to find her alive. Days into the search, a local tip pointed to a house near the crash site, just down the road. Multiple witnesses claimed to see suspicious activity there that night. Years later, Fred Murray and private investigators used cadaver dogs at the property. The dogs hid on a scent in the basement, and investigators noticed something odd. A section of the concrete floor appeared newer than the rest. Fred begged authorities to dig. They refused. To this day, no official search or excavation has been done in that home, and that house has since been sold. Open mailbox with raised flag, the mysterious emails, and the silence from Billy. In the days that followed, Maura's long-distance boyfriend Billy Roach flew in from Oklahoma. He cooperated with police, made public appeals, and was devastated. But some things didn't add up. Maura had sent him an email the day she left saying, "I love you." He called her constantly. Her phone would ring, then cut out. At one point, he got through to her voicemail and heard something chilling. The greeting had changed. Someone or something had accessed Maura's voicemail. Billy also received a mysterious voicemail himself, later released to the public. The audio was garbled, distorted, and unintelligible. Some believe it was Maura. Others think it was a prank. But it's never been confirmed. Was there a second crash that night? Some witnesses in the area reported hearing 2 crashes, not one. Others claimed to have seen a red truck near the scene, headlights on, engine idling. One woman said she saw a young man walking quickly away from the site, glancing back. None of these sightings were ever confirmed or thoroughly investigated. In a town this small, with so little traffic, these anomalies mattered, but most were dismissed as irrelevant. Brain the theory police clung to. Maura chose to leave. Despite everything, the official stance remained the same. She left voluntarily. No foul play suspected. They pointed to her emotional state, the lie about the family emergency, her recent legal and personal troubles. But if she ran away, why bring textbooks? Why bring wine and her birth control? Why lie to no one except the professors? And if it was suicide, why has no body ever been found? Maura was missing, but the search for answers was already clouded by miscommunication, mistrust, and missed opportunities. Fred Murray was now at war, not just with time, but with the very system meant to help him. And in the vacuum of truth, something else began to rise. The internet. And Maura's case would never be the same again. A girl vanishes. The police stumble. The media yawns. But the internet? It erupts. Maura Murray's disappearance didn't just haunt her family. It captured the world. It became one of the first major internet cold cases. A digital mystery that thousands of strangers tried to solve in real time. And with every theory came a new suspect, a new lead, and a new dead end. This is the most basic theory, and the one police originally leaned on. Maura was overwhelmed. A troubled academic record, the car crash, legal issues with credit card fraud, pressure from her father and boyfriend. They argue she planned this. She emptied her account, packed her car, made calls to northern rental spots. She wanted to disappear, but problems arise. She took no cash, just $280. She didn't empty her phone records or cover her digital trail. She left all her personal ID, driver's license, bank card, student ID, in the car. No one starts a new life with no money and no identity. And Maura's family insists she wasn't running from her life. She was trying to escape something else. This theory cuts deep, and it's been debated for years. Was Maura spiraling? Her recent behavior could suggest depression, crying at work, lying about a family death, isolating herself. The strange drive north. Maybe she intended to drive into the woods and end it all. But again, the evidence falters. No note, no body, no known mental health diagnosis. And most importantly, she brought textbooks, toiletries, and makeup. People preparing for death don't usually bring homework and lip gloss. Hypothermia/accidental death. Another plausible explanation. She fled the crash site, became disoriented in the woods, and succumbed to exposure. But professional search dogs, cadaver dogs, and helicopters with infrared combed those woods extensively. They found nothing. No clothing, no bones, no trace of Maura. After nearly 2 decades, no hunter, hiker, or snowmelt has revealed her remains. It's unlikely she died nearby. That Maura was abducted. Whether she hitchhiked, flagged someone down, or was forced into a vehicle, many believe someone picked her up that night and ended her story. Supporting evidence. The scent trail ends mid-road. The area is remote. Few witnesses, no cameras. Locals with criminal histories lived nearby. A witness claimed to see a red truck idling on the road. A local man later told his brother he knew what happened to Maura, but no one's ever been arrested. No evidence has confirmed this. Yet for her father, Fred Murray, this remains the most likely answer. I think someone stopped and pretended to help her, and she was gone. Then there's the infamous A-frame house. Located just down the road from the crash, multiple witnesses claimed to see lights on late that night and reported strange behavior from the people who lived there. Years later, cadaver dogs hit on a scent in the basement, particularly near a spot with fresh concrete. Fred begged police to dig. They declined. Private investigators obtained carpet samples, and independent testing suggested the presence of blood. But chain of custody was unclear. The sample degraded. And still, no excavation has ever been ordered. The house, sold, renovated. changed forever, and possibly hiding a secret beneath its floor. It came from a tower near Burlington, Vermont, 90 miles away from where she crashed. Police later claimed it was a glitch, but others believe her phone, or Maura herself, was somewhere else entirely after crash. Could she have been alive for longer than anyone thought? By 2005, Maura's case had exploded online. Reddit threads, true crime forums, anonymous blogs, YouTube channels, podcasts like Missing Maura Murray began dissecting the case with surgical precision. But with that came misinformation. Anonymous posters claiming
Saturday,
to be friends,
February 7th.
theories that her father was involved, accusations thrown at her boyfriend, her sister, police, and even journalists. One blog, run by investigative journalist James Renner, suggested Maura was still alive, possibly in Canada, using a fake identity. Fred Murray denounced this as cruel and speculative. The internet wasn't just helping, it was spiraling. One theory quietly echoes through all of this. What if Maura was living a double life? Some clues suggest she may have been hiding something. Secret calls to someone in the army. A possible second cell phone never found. Sudden withdrawal from friends and family. Not criminal, not suicidal. Just a girl under pressure, carrying a secret. One that maybe led her to someone who knew too much. Or someone who wanted to keep her quiet. Closing montage. Photos of
February
Maura,
8th.
Snowy Road, her empty dorm bed. Dozens of theories. Thousands of pages of posts. Millions of views. And yet, no answer. Every path leads somewhere. But nowhere leads to Maura. Transition to next chapter. Emotional reflection. And through it all, we're left asking not just what happened, but who she really was. Next, we look beyond the mystery. To Maura herself. Her mind, her fears, her quiet unraveling. Because to understand what happened that night, we have to understand her. When a person disappears, the first thing we lose is the truth. The second is who they were. Maura Murray has been called many things. A runaway, a victim, a mystery, a ghost. But what's often forgotten is that before the theories, before the press conferences, before the conspiracies, she was just a young woman, confused, brilliant, flawed, and, like many of us, quietly unraveling behind a calm smile, brain and mind under pressure. Maura had all the traits we're taught to admire. She was athletic, academically gifted, disciplined, quietly ambitious. But behind every high achiever, there is pressure. Pressure to perform, to be perfect, to live up to expectations. Her family had a complicated dynamic. Her mother, Lori, was struggling with alcoholism. Her father, Fred, was intensely focused on her future, a proud but forceful presence in her life. She wanted to make them proud. She wanted to make everyone proud. And she was cracking under the weight of it. Books West Point to UMass, The Fall from Grace. Maura began her college journey at West Point, following in the footsteps of her older sister. There, she studied engineering, immersed in a culture of discipline and precision. But in her second year, she made a mistake. She used a stolen credit card to buy food, reportedly only around $80 worth. A small infraction, but at West Point it was enough. She transferred to University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and shifted focus to nursing. To some, it looked like a normal transition. To Maura, it was a failure, a scar she didn't talk about. Love letter secrets she carried quietly. Those close to Maura say she was kind, dependable, a good listener, but emotionally private. She rarely shared her burdens. She didn't ask for help. Even in her final days, when signs of emotional turmoil appeared, she brushed it all off. The crying at work, the car crash, the legal trouble. She never reached out, not even to her boyfriend, Billy, or her father, or her closest friends. It's possible she didn't want to burden anyone. It's also possible she didn't know how. Coupled with heart, Billy Roche, love, distance, and doubt. Her long-distance boyfriend, Billy, was a constant presence in her life. They talked often. They made future plans. But something had shifted. Emails from Maura in her final weeks suggest tension, distance. There were rumors, unconfirmed, of infidelity on both sides, of fights, secrets. Some claimed Billy had a temper. Others believed he was simply too far away to help. But Maura didn't confide in him either. Even when she cried at work, even when she packed her things and disappeared, she didn't tell him what was happening. Whatever it was hers alone. Performing art's a smile that hid the storm. People close to Maura describe her as brilliant but guarded, quiet but not weak, a perfectionist and afraid to disappoint. She was the type of person who helped others, but didn't ask for help herself. She was carrying things. We just don't know what. A private storm. One that had been building long before the crash. Was she living a double life? Some believe Maura was leading a life others didn't fully see. Evidence supports subtle secrecy. A possible second cell phone. Hidden credit card use. Lying to her professors about a family death. Planning a sudden solo trip without telling anyone. Was she hiding from something? A bad relationship? A pregnancy? A legal scare? Or was she just overwhelmed and trying to escape the only way she knew how? Even her own family admits they didn't know everything about her. And that's the heartbreak of this case. Luggage, why did she go north? One of the greatest remaining questions. Why the White Mountains? Maura had no scheduled meetings. No known friends or family in that area. But she'd been there before. With her father. With her family. It was one of the only places that ever brought her peace. Some believe she was heading to a place that felt safe. Familiar. Maybe she wanted to clear her head. Maybe she intended to come back. Or maybe she was looking for somewhere to disappear. Light bulb, what if she didn't want to be found? It's a controversial thought. One that angers some, especially her family. But it remains possible that Maura planned to go off the grid, to start over, to escape. But if that's true, why the alcohol? Why crash the car? Why leave everything behind, even her cell phone and money? If she planned to vanish, she did it in the most dangerous, unprepared way possible. Unless she never got the chance. Brain the psychology of disappearance. Many missing persons cases involve a similar pattern. Pressure builds. Secrets mount. The person isolates. Then one day they snap. But what makes Maura's case different is the lack of resolution. No one has claimed to see her since. No body. No belongings. No confirmed sightings. Not in 1 year. Not in 5. Not in 20. It's like she stepped off the road and into a void. Closing reflection. Fade to black and white image of Maura running track. She wasn't a headline, or a theory, or a case file. She was a 21-year-old girl, doing her best, carrying weight no one else could see. And whatever happened in those woods, whatever choice she made or fate she met, we owe her more than just a mystery. We owe her the truth. End with emotional transition to the final act. Coming up next, we explore what's happened since. The arrests that almost happened, the new leads, the changing investigators, the family's tireless search, and the question that still echoes louder than any other. Where is Maura Murray? The road didn't change. Year after year, the trees grew thicker, the grass greener, but the mystery? Still frozen in time. Maura Murray had been missing for 1 year, then 5, then 10, now 20. And through all of it, a father kept walking those woods, asking the same question. Where is my daughter? Man-standing Fred Murray, the father who wouldn't let go. From the moment Maura vanished, Fred Murray transformed into a man on a mission. He returned to Haverhill dozens of times. He pleaded with police, begged the public, and walked endless miles of forest alone with a flashlight and a broken heart. She didn't run away. She didn't kill herself. Someone took her, and I'll find them, even if it's the last thing I do. Fred became both the soul and the spine of this case, but it came at a cost. Years of frustration, clashes with investigators, mounting grief, and still no closure. Megaphoned the rise of media attention. For a while, the world forgot Maura, until 2015, when a new wave of media resurrected the case. The Missing MauraMurray podcast debuted, bringing fresh eyes and new tips. Journalists like James Renner and YouTubers began deep investigations. Reddit and web sleuth forums exploded with activity. Documentaries followed. Disappeared investigation discovery. The Disappearance of Maura Murray, Oxygen. Multiple YouTube docuseries. Each piece brought hope and controversy. Some accused Fred of withholding information. Others questioned the motives of investigators, bloggers, even Maura's friends. The line between help and harm blurred, and the case became more than a mystery. It became a movement. Magnifying glass still to write new investigators. Cold Case Unit reopens. In 2019, the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit reopened Maura's case with renewed vigor. For the first time in years, old leads were re-examined. Witnesses were re-interviewed. Technology like ground-penetrating radar was used.
Saturday, February 7th.
A tip about a nearby home led to a partial search. But again, no remains found. Still, officials said, this case is solvable. And hope returned. But it wouldn't last long. Hourglass not on the clock keeps ticking, and false hopes multiply. Over the years, there have been dozens of false alarms. Bones found in the woods, not human. A burned cell phone found near the scene, not hers. Anonymous tips claiming sightings, all unverified. A lead about a Canadian woman living off-grid, proven false. A supposed confession from a local man, retracted, unverifiable. Each spark of hope quickly became another blow to the family. It's not the silence that kills you, Fred once said. It's the noise that leads nowhere. Derelict House, the A-frame house revisited. One of the most chilling threads resurfaced in 2017.
February 8th.
That A-frame house near the crash site, the one where cadaver dogs once hid on a scent. Private investigators obtained part of the carpet from the old basement. Initial testing suggested possible human blood. The state police were pressured to act. In 2022, they finally brought in ground-penetrating radar to scan beneath the floor. Results were inconclusive.
February 9th.
No body, no charges, no closure. And once again, the trail went cold. DNA advances offer new hope. As of 2024, forensic science has advanced dramatically. In other cold cases, familial DNA and genealogy websites have cracked murders decades old. Fred Murray submitted his own DNA in hopes that if Maura's remains are ever found, even a tooth, a bone fragment, it can be matched instantly. It's a long shot, but it's something. Candle Maura's family today, 2 decades later. Her siblings have families now. Some live quiet lives. Some still advocate online. Fred Murray, now in his 70s, has grown quieter in recent years, but never truly stopped searching. He still attends yearly vigils. He still answers calls from journalists. And he still walks the stretch of Route 112. Every year, without fail, round pushpin the tree with the blue ribbon. There is a tree just off the road where Maura crashed. Wrapped around it, a blue ribbon, faded by weather, replaced often by strangers. Sometimes, fresh flowers appear. Sometimes, old ones rot in the snow. But that tree has become a symbol, not just of Maura's story, but of every missing person the world forgot. Montage, headlines, forum screenshots, footage of snowy woods, Fred lighting a candle, college student vanishes, no new leads, 20 years of silence, father still searching. Who was Maura Murray? So many questions, so few answers, and yet people still care. They still search. They still hope. And then one final clue. In 2025, a new tip emerged. a man came forward, anonymously, claiming to have seen two men pushing a black car near Route 112 the night Maura vanished. He said one of them matched a composite sketch from a separate case, an assault that occurred in Vermont that same month. He passed a polygraph. The information was sent to the cold case unit, and now, for the first time in years, a new person of interest is being investigated. It may lead nowhere, or it might change everything. Closing reflection. Returned to her dorm room, empty bed, packed boxes. Maura packed her things neatly. She told no one where she was going, and then she was gone. But her story didn't end there. It became something more. Something bigger than one girl on a snowy road. It became a symbol of how fast the world can forget and how hard one family fought to remember. No one expected her to disappear, and no one imagined she would stay gone. But 20 years later, Maura Murray's name still echoes in living rooms, across Reddit threads, whispered in true crime podcasts. She has become more than a mystery. She has become a mirror, reflecting all the things we fear most. That the people we love can vanish without reason. That justice can falter. That silence can last forever. Candle what her story left behind. In the wake of Maura's disappearance, the world changed, not because of her case alone, but because of what it revealed. That missing adults are often overlooked. That families are forced to become investigators. That the internet can be both a blessing and a curse. That truth can vanish just as easily as people do. Maura's case became a template for cold case advocacy, a story that forced institutions to pay closer attention, a wound that still hasn't healed. Globe with Meridians, the digital age of disappearances. Maura Murray was one of the first missing persons cases to go viral online, before Instagram, before TikTok, before true crime was a genre. People didn't just read about her story, they lived inside it, mapping timelines, cross-referencing phone records, reconstructing the scene from Google Earth, digging through old forums and archived databases. Some did it out of obsession, some out of empathy, some because they saw themselves or their daughters. In Maura, her story wasn't just news. It was a community investigation, and in that, she became immortalized. Thought balloon, what if she's still alive? It's the question no one dares to answer out loud. Could Maura be out there? Living quietly, under a new name, married, working, watching the world search for her. It seems impossible. And yet, impossible things happen every day. We've seen cases cracked decades later. We've seen missing people reappear in the most unexpected places. But if Maura is alive, why has she stayed silent? Why let her father suffer? Why leave the world wondering? The answer may never come. And perhaps that's part of the tragedy. Balance scale, the justice that never came. There has been no arrest, no conviction, no publicly named suspect. The police say they've followed hundreds of leads. They've used drones, thermal cameras, DNA labs, but they never found her. For Fred Murray, justice was never just about punishment. It was about truth. I don't care who did it. I just want to bring her home. But the longer time drags on, the more justice feels like a myth. Speech balloon, her name still matters. You might think people forget that the internet moves on, that cold cases grow cold and stay that way. But not always. Because even now in 2025, new people are discovering Maura's case every day. Journalists are still asking questions. Podcasts still follow new leads. Filmmakers are still telling her story. And Fred, if he's alive, still walks the road where she vanished. Because Maura never came home. And until she does, the story doesn't end. Final montage. Photos of Maura as a child, track star, dorm room, crash site, candlelight vigils. There are stories that demand resolution. This is not one of them. This story asks something harder. Can you live with not knowing? Can you hold space for uncertainty? For hope and despair at the same time? Because that's what Maura's family has had to do. And maybe, deep down, That's what we're all doing. Folded hands in her honor. Maura Murray was more than a case number. She was a daughter, a sister, a student, a runner, a young woman trying to find her way. And even in her absence, she has helped change the way we search, the way we fight, the way we remember. Closing shot. The tree on Route 112, a fresh ribbon tied to it, wind blowing snow gently. The road is quiet again, but the silence isn't empty. It's filled with echoes, of footsteps, of voices, of a girl who never came home, but never truly left.